President Trump is proposing large-scale banking sanctions and tariffs on Russia until a ceasefire and a final peace settlement is reached with Ukraine, as Russia continues to pound the country this weekend with missiles and drones. Joining me now, GOP Senator Lindsey Graham. Good to have you back, Senator.
Thank you.
So there's a pause right now on Ukrainian aid and intelligence sharing. There are reports that is hampering Ukraine's ability to defend itself against this incoming new wave of attacks from Russia. Have you talked with the White House about that? How concerned are you about the long-term impacts of the pause?
Yeah, I talked to Mike Waltz a couple of days ago. The goal is to end the war honorably and justly. Zelensky blew it in the White House. We'd been working on this mineral deal for a very long time, but we are where we are. Yeah, I am worried about cutting off intelligence and weapons to Ukraine as long as the fighting is going on. If we pull the plug on Ukraine, it'd be worse than Afghanistan. I don't think President Trump has any desire to do that. But until we have a ceasefire, I would give Ukraine what they need in terms of intelligence and weapons to defend themselves. In terms of Russia, I will be introducing sanctions on their banking sector and on their energy sector next week, urging them to get to the table. If they don't engage in ceasefire and peace talks with the administration, we should sanction the hell out of them, and I'll have legislation to do that next week.
Okay, we will be tracking that. In the meantime, you mentioned the rare earth minerals deal that has been stalled after the disastrous meeting at the White House last week.
Disastrous.
But listen, you were one of the folks who met with President Zelensky before he went there. Senator Chris Van Hollen was as well. He was with me on the show last week. Here's how he described that deal.
It was extortion, pure and simple. It would be like in the middle of World War II, FDR saying to Churchill, we're not going to help you against the Nazis and Hitler unless you give up half of your mineral resources and half of your coal.
All right, two things. What do you make of his characterization of the deal? And he was explaining it as we understood it at that time. Maybe it's evolved. But secondly, do you think that his Democratic colleagues or that he urged Zelensky to go to the White House and reject the deal?
No, I don't. But what Chris said, I like Chris personally, is just ridiculous. We're trying to integrate our economies. We're trying to make sure that Ukraine has value to the American economy, a win-win situation. They're the richest country in Europe in terms of critical minerals, which is the oil of the 21st century. So doing a deal with Ukraine is beneficial to both countries. It's not extortion. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to do a deal with Ukraine where we can make $500 billion in the critical mineral space for our own economy, give them money, help them develop their resources so they can grow their economy and defend themselves? That's not extortion. That's a good business deal. And to all these Democrats who are worried about this deal, what the hell did you do to deter Russia from invading Ukraine? What did you do after Russia invaded Ukraine? Pretty much nothing. President Trump's going to end this war justly. We should do this critical minerals deal. We should keep arming Ukraine and providing them intelligence until a ceasefire. And we should tell Russia, if you don't engage in ceasefire discussions, we're going to sanction you. We got to put pressure on both sides to get them to the table to end this war. The minerals deal is a win-win.
Well, it sounds like there's reporting this morning that the president needs more than just the minerals deal in order to move forward with giving back, the aid, the intelligence sharing with Ukraine. So, listen, this all heads to Saudi Arabia this week. Top U.S. And Ukrainian officials are going to be there negotiating. What would you need to see to expect or to call that a success? What concrete things coming from those meetings?
Well, I think we want to find out what does peace look like in the eyes of Ukraine. They've already suggested they're ready for a ceasefire. They've already suggested they're ready for peace talks. Sit down with Ukraine this coming week and find out what a good deal looks like to them. Then urge the Russians to sit down with the White House and compare notes and end this war. Shuttle diplomacy will work. But I want the Russians to know that I don't mind talking with you about how to end this war, but you're going to be held accountable for this war. And if they don't come to the table, the Russians, we should up sanctions like President Trump indicated. But you're not helping anybody during these discussions if you do not provide the weapons necessary for Ukraine to defend themselves. You're not helping end the war if you deny intelligence to Ukraine to defend themselves while the fighting's going on. So I'm hoping we will get a view of the Ukraine's view of how the war ends next week and begin to find a way to end the war.
Well, another foreign policy challenge, tensions ratcheting up between Iran and the U.S. And the president told our Maria Bartiromo he sent over a letter to Iran's Supreme Leader on X this weekend, not mentioning President Trump by name or the U.S., but saying he won't work with coercive governments or be bullied by them. Where do we go next with Iran? Because their nuclear program is of immense concern to people around the globe.
It's an immense concern to me. It's the most destabilizing event on the planet is for the Iranians Ayatollah to have a nuclear weapon. He would use it to further his religious agenda, which is to purify Islam in his own image as a Shiite, destroy the Jewish state, and to drive us out. He would use a nuclear weapon if he had it. He has enough enriched uranium for 6 bombs. There's no commercial purpose for enriched uranium at 60%. We run peaceful nuclear reactors, 3 to 5% of enrichment. Here's what a good deal will look like to me. No more enrichment for Iran. Take all the highly enriched uranium out of Iran. I'm willing to buy it from them and allow them to have nuclear power where fuel rods are provided by either Russia, China, or some international group. Enrichment is the process that you use to make a bomb. Iran should not be allowed to enrich. The United Arab Emirates has a nuclear program. They don't enrich uranium. They get fuel rods from us. That should be the outcome, and it should be quick. If you want to negotiate with Iran, you need to have an end game of where they have no nuclear capability to make a bomb when it's over, and you should put them on the clock. And if you don't put them on the clock and this thing drags out, they're going to rearm and retool. So I don't mind talking to them, but I want an end game to make sure they have no nuclear material to make a bomb when it's over. They're out of the enrichment business, and that we can verify everything I just said.
Okay, before we leave that region, I want to talk about Syria as well. There's a lot of news filtering in this weekend and really a ton crossing the wires this morning as well about mass executions and slaughtering of minority groups there, including a lot of Christians, the Alawite minorities as well. What can we be doing? What should we be doing?
Well, number one, the guy who's in charge now, Golani, was associated with al-Baghdadi. He's wearing a suit. Does that mean he's no longer a jihadist? I don't know. But their actions are very reminiscent of what happened in Iraq and Syria when ISIS took over. They're going after their religious enemies. The Alawites are Shiites. These guys are Sunnis. They're killing Christians. I am very worried. I would urge the administration to have somebody focused on Syria. Saudi Arabia is talking to Golani, the head of HTS. If you're going to talk about removing sanctions on Syria, you better have conditions to make sure they meet them before you remove those sanctions. Is this Al-Qaeda or ISIS light, or is this some new form of Islam that we can all live with? I don't know, but I've never been more worried about the deterioration of Syria than I am now. The world needs to get engaged with Syria before it's too late.
Okay, we got to go, but quickly, do enough Democrats vote with you in the Senate to avoid a shutdown on Friday?
Yeah, I believe we won't shut the government down come Friday, but the CR is terrible on defense and the border. I want a commitment. We're going to have more money for border and defense before I vote for the CR, but I think we'll keep the government funded. The only thing we need to be shutting down is Iran's nuclear program, not our government.
All right. Senator, always good to see you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up.